It's been a while. Life, as it always does, got in the way. I had to step back, deal with some personal matters, but even during that silence, something kept pulling at me. Those real-life stories, the ones that linger, that haunt, that demand to be told. And now, we return to the shadows. These are true horror stories from Singapore, told by those who lived through them. Welcome back to the Morbid Codex. I was fresh out of the police academy, posted to a neighborhood police post, standard stuff. My first real partner was Sergeant Yusuf, a seasoned officer with 14 years under his belt. He didn't talk much, just did his job and expected me to keep up. One night in 1992, we were on a routine night patrol. Around 4 a.m., deep inside the Seletar Reservoir area, he suddenly slowed the patrol car and stopped by the side of a narrow access road. Not a soul in sight. Then, without saying a word, he stepped out and walked toward a patch of open space. I sat in the front passenger seat, confused. No one was there. And then he started talking, like he was doing a spot check. "Sir, IC please. Sit down. You from where?" He even pulled out his walkie-talkie and tried to radio ops room, giving them an NRIC number to screen. I was frozen. From my seat, I had a clear view of everything. There was no one in front of him. A few minutes later, he came back and slammed the door. He looked pissed. "Why the hell didn't you get out and assist me?" he snapped. I looked at him and said, "Sir, there's no one out there. You were talking to yourself." He went pale. For about 3 seconds, he was dead silent. Then something jumped onto the roof of the patrol car, heavy and fast, the sound of claws scraping across metal like fingernails on a classroom blackboard. I'll never forget that moment. Two grown men, frozen as that thing scratched across the roof. Sergeant Yusuf floored the accelerator and we tore out of there. I kept looking at the side mirrors, half expecting to see something clinging on. We stopped only when we reached a petrol station near Upper Thompson. Got out, breathless, not saying a word. That's when we saw them, 5 scratches across the roof of the patrol car. We agreed not to say anything to the transport officer. No one would believe us anyway. And honestly, I didn't want to end up as the story everyone joked about at the station. This happened when I was 9 years old in 2001. We lived in a 4-room flat in Tampines. My dad was a taxi driver, always worked late shifts. He'll usually come home around 1 or 2 a.m. One night on a Thursday, I couldn't sleep. Had this strange, uneasy feeling, like the air in the house was too heavy. I stayed up watching TV in the living room. It was about 1:15 a.m. when I saw something from the corner of my eye. A shadow gliding past the window outside. Our windows were tinted, so I couldn't see clearly, but the movement was smooth. Not someone walking. It was like floating. 5 minutes later, I heard this sound outside the window, like a deep, snorting growl, almost like a wild boar. Then the same shadow passed again. I couldn't take it anymore. I went to wake my mum and asked her to stay in the living room with me. She thought I was just scared from watching TV, but stayed anyway. At around 2 a.m., my dad came home, took a shower, came out of the room, and suddenly shouted, "Who brought a cat into the house?" My mum and I were stunned. Dad's allergic to cats. Even a little fur makes his skin break out. We rushed into the master bedroom. Sitting in the corner was a black cat hissing, fur standing on end, eyes wide, locked onto us. We had no idea how it got in. No one left the door open. We were on the 4th floor. Windows had grills. My dad grabbed a towel, wrapped it around the cat, and brought it downstairs. The moment he let go, it darted off like lightning, straight down the stairs, no hesitation. Never saw it again. Never stayed up late waiting for my dad again either. And every time I hear a cat hiss, it reminds me of that night and the shadow outside our window. About a year later, we finally moved out of that flat. My dad, who was friends with a neighbor on the 2nd floor, shared our experience one evening. That's when we learned something unsettling. The entire block had been built on what used to be a cemetery many years ago. Our neighbor mentioned something that still sends chills down my spine, that the cat might not have been a cat at all, but a wandering spirit in disguise that somehow found its way into our home. I used to live in this old walk-up apartment in Bukit Merah. No condo security, no fancy lifts. Just one really slow elevator that took forever. Our school bus uncle was strict. If you weren't downstairs within 5 minutes, he'd drive off. One morning, I was running late. The lift was stuck somewhere on the top floors, so I dashed to the stairwell to go down on foot. I was about 3 floors down when I heard it. Heavy breathing, coming from below me, slow, labored, and this faint metallic clinking sound, like keys or chains. At 6 a.m., who the hell walks upstairs? Everyone's heading out. As I reached the next landing, I saw him, or it rather, a figure in all white clothes, traditional pants and top, like what you see worn under Taoist robes in Chinese period dramas. Long black hair covering its face, standing on the steps, just standing there, breathing heavily, and those metal sounds? Still clinking quietly. I was too scared to turn around and go back. Something in me said not to act scared. So I just kept walking down, trying not to make eye contact. As I passed him, he didn't move, but I could hear him, still breathing heavily, right next to my ear, loudly. I ran like mad the moment I went past him. I didn't tell anyone at the time. I thought maybe it was just some weird uncle. But years later, a friend told me what I might have seen. "You didn't greet him?" he asked. "That sounds like Tua Apek." I never saw the man again, but now, whenever I walk alone in stairwells, I always say, "Excuse me," just in case. In Singapore, horror doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits, at edge of a reservoir, stairwells, or even at home. If you've ever felt something wasn't quite right, you're not alone. This is the Morbid Codex, and we're just getting started again.